Okay, my name is Rob Viglione. So I'm co-founder and the guy running the Horizon blockchain project right now, formerly known as ZenCash. And I figured this is a business conference here, business of blockchain. So I figured why not give you our experiences and what we've been going through in the last year and a half or so on our project. So I'll give you the lessons basically from the trenches. Now, who are we? A lot of people may not have heard about our new name. So we actually rebranded about a month ago to Horizon from ZenCash. And our goal, our motto, is to bring privacy to life. That's what we're all about. So what I'll do is I'll give you a high-level overview. I for sure have to tell you who we are and why, because I think that's important, it matters. And then I'm going to get into, for these blockchain companies, businesses, platforms, projects, they all have to think about what's their vision, their mission, and their values, and how they're going to achieve all of these things. Because if you don't think about this stuff up front, you're probably not going to be doing this stuff efficiently to achieve your goals. And then I'll talk about what I consider to be a sustainable blockchain ecosystem. So there's a lot of different stakeholders, and there's some economics involved here, and we have to think holistically and long-term for how we're going to build something that's going to persist for the next 10, 20, 50 years. Right? We're not in this for the short term, for profitability. And then we'll talk about organizational structures that I think scale pretty well in this type of business in particular. And then, I said initially some lessons to survive a bear market, but I think we need to do a lot more than survive, and we think about how to really thrive in a bear market. Because the reality is we're in one right now. I don't expect it to last forever, but we need to address the reality of where we are. And then at the grand finale here, which is something that I want to really challenge the industry, is we need to think about going from geeks to masses here. And what I mean here is think about products. So the technology is really cool. And as scientists and engineers, we probably really enjoy working on the technology. But we need to think beyond that and think about how we actually build products that are going to make people's lives better in a meaningful way. Okay. There we go. Okay, so what are we? What are we at Horizon? Really, we're a privacy-oriented platform to do a whole bunch of stuff. The way that I see us, the way that I think that we fit into the ecosystem, is basically an intersection of a variety of other projects that are out there right now. So we're starting with this core base of kind of building on Bitcoin, building on zero-knowledge cryptography from ZCash, and then thinking a little bit further on the governance side, and building in kind of a decentralized governance system with on-chain voting, building out more scalability through DAG architectures we're exploring, and then also looking at smart contracting and going into the future as more of a platform. So we need to think about how do we position ourselves, and how is this going to help us achieve our goals. So where are we now? We started off about a little bit under 2 years ago. But we already have the largest node network in the industry. So we have over 20,000 nodes around the world running our software. And why does this matter? Because we want to actually be really scalable and actually do things with our nodes. Not just have a bunch of nodes out there for the sake of it, but to actually build software that's going to start running on them and be able to scale out our platform. So we have about 50 professionals on our team. So we're organized as more than just a technology project. We're bringing technology to market. So we have a whole bunch of divisions like marketing, operations, the kinds of things that you would want to see in a holistic business and not just an engineering or science project. Right? So we want to take the science to engineering, build it out, and then bring it to market. Okay, so every project needs to think about starting with the very basics, right? Think about your vision, why do you exist? And then think about your mission, which is what you build to accomplish your vision. And then this all has to be encapsulated with a certain set of values, right? Like Apple, Google, all of these companies have values that help motivate their team and organize things in a certain way. We have values. Our values are the user is our number one, most important objective, to make them happy, to make their lives better. Then, for the project, it's sort of like we're organizing, we're trying to organize chaos. It's like we're constantly trying to fight entropy and trying to build something out of nothing. So our vision, I'll tell you about us, but every project needs to think about this for themselves. So why we exist, We started off with just very basic reasons for, we think that every human being around the world has a right to privacy. We think that the world is starting to forget that, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So the technology now is here to start endowing people with a better sense of privacy so they can retain more control over their lives. We want just more fairness in economic systems. So we're building out a peer-to-peer economic system that we think is less hierarchical and could make an impact on the world. We believe in things like the right to democracy, so we want to democratize our own system. It's like we're thinking about a 21st century business and really making our users the owners of the business, and just ultimately trying to endow people with their own digital footprint, to give them the right to control every aspect of their digital lives that really right now you don't have. So the Facebooks and the Googles of the world and all these media companies make a fortune off of your data, and you probably don't even realize what they're selling, what they're collecting. It's sort of appalling when you actually get into the weeds and understand what they're doing with your data. So what we have the opportunity to do now is use this technology and some sound economics to proliferate it so that individuals can now own every aspect of what they do online. This is the ultimate vision. And then be able to monetize that or say, we don't want to keep it. We don't want to even have a digital footprint. That's an individual human right, in my opinion. So that's why we're here. And that's why we were born. But every project needs to think about this for themselves. So, when we think about building a blockchain system, you have to think about this like a business and think about how you're going to make it sustainable and why, think of a reason for why you're here and then go out and aggressively try to accomplish that. So, this is what we're trying to do, is to give individuals ownership of their digital footprints. Like I said, we use some fancy cryptography to make that possible. And we have a lot of cool partners and an interesting architecture for how we make this happen. So for us, we're sort of a master node system, if you guys are familiar with the industry there, where we actually pay people to run nodes. So we want to distribute the economics in a more fair, meaningful way. And we're building on-chain voting, and we have some excellent industry partners. So we work with actually some of the guys here today, our partners at IOHK, so Input Output Hong Kong, do some excellent science and engineering R&D. We have some great software partners here in Ukraine. So InfoPulse, we have some of our InfoPulse friends here today. We have some product engineers from our project here today. And we also work with some other great engineers around the world. So we have some great in-house talent, but we also think about this, again, like a business. And there's some things you want to bring in, sort of partnerships and coalitions across the industry. So we're doing that, and I think it works very effectively. So, okay, now getting into some of the weeds about sustainable blockchains. Now, Bitcoin did an excellent job with Nakamoto consensus, or how you motivate people to go run your software and then add transactions to this distributed ledger. We call them miners. And miners get paid in Bitcoin. That's really the only stakeholder group that gets paid explicitly. And I think that this causes an imbalance. And it's an imbalance in understanding that there's a lot of other stakeholders of a blockchain ecosystem. You have to realize people just to run software, expend resources. People who do development on your project, or marketing, or public relations, or any of these other business functions, even if they're just evangelists of your project, there's a whole lot of other stakeholders that currently under the original Bitcoin protocol just don't get compensated, at least explicitly. So I think this was a bit of a shortfall, and we correct this by doing a little bit what I think is the next generation of sustainability, where you actually compensate other stakeholders as well, and you give them a voice. And we're doing this with our on-chain voting system. There's some of the researchers here in the room right now. So I think this is at least one step in the right direction, but we could probably keep going and keep doing a better job, and realizing that every single person that plugs into our ecosystem is a stakeholder, and we have to incentivize them properly to actually participate. So you have to get the economics right. And then why do it alone? There's a whole lot of talent in the industry. What I don't like seeing, and I have seen in the last year, is that a lot of these projects are building sort of in a silo. They're kind of going off on their own and trying to do everything in-house, or just do everything without collaborating with other projects. I've even heard people say that it's bad that we work with other projects. They think that it's, in some cultures, if you're going outside of your organization, they think your organization is actually weak. I think that's crazy. I think you're crazy not to work with other people, and you're crazy not to observe what the rest of the industry is doing and try to bring people together. So that's what we're trying to do actively. All right, so again, this slide is only meant to say incentive compatibility is critical, right? This is like Econ 101 here. If you're not incentivizing every single person to participate, they're not going to be doing so sustainably. Even in the early days of Bitcoin, the idea of paying developers was sort of weird. It was everyone just expecting the open source environment to go and participate for free, and you should just do this because you love the project. You should just do this because you want to contribute to society. And I think that's great, but people have bills to pay as well, and I think you have to actually understand this and address it and pay people to participate. So our philosophy is we have a different sustainable economic model. It's one that I know, for instance, I'm going to have funding 100 years from now. Maybe not me because I'll be dead, but whoever takes over the project will have funding available because we built into our consensus a split of mining rewards that don't go only to miners. Actually, 10% goes to a treasury fund, which is like our own in-house VC or venture capital arm, where we can fund people to do stuff. So currently, our 50-person team and all of these companies that work with us, we pay them out of this 10% block reward part of our treasury. Now, this, I think, is critical. And there's some very sound economic reasons for why you want to have this sort of sustainable incremental funding. So ICOs bring you a lot of money up front. You get a whole bunch of capital by issuing tokens and getting resources for doing that. But I think that there's some economic inefficiencies with that. Because number one, as a manager, would I want $100 million up front and then nothing in the future? Probably not, because I wouldn't know how to spend that efficiently right now. If you gave me $100 million, I would not know what my investment opportunity set is going to be 10 years from now or 20 years from now. That's just crazy to think that we would have this kind of foresight perfectly. So incremental funding, I think, is far superior, and it mimics what we've seen in the real world or the non-blockchain world previously. There's no venture capital fund in the world 10 years ago that would give a startup without a product or any users, $4 billion to get out there and just kind of build some software, and have fun. That would not happen in the pre-blockchain world. It probably shouldn't happen in the blockchain world either, and there's probably going to be a bit of a mess here as some of these projects, as people realize they're not delivering on the promises that they're kind of threw out there. So incremental funding is key. And then also we have some other stakeholders that we want to compensate. So we're building out a large infrastructure. We want every single household in the world one day to be running our software. So we actually pay people to do it right now. And that's why we have the largest node network in the world. So we have some great partners. And our partnerships mainly focus on R&D because there's some amazing talent out there. Some of these amazingly talented scientists are here right now. We work with IOHK. They're a prolific R&D firm in this industry. We work with InfoPulse on the software dev side. And then we have some partnerships also on the marketing, PR side, and then institutional investors. So Digital Currency Group out of New York is a big supporter of the project, and their whole family of funds and investment groups are supporting us. This kind of support is really important. So when you think about building your own blockchain business, you need to go beyond and think about a broad support base and not just try to do everything yourself because it's tough. It's a big world and there's a ton of competition. And I would say that this is the most competitive industry in the world, so you want to bring in as much support as you can. We have a lot of exchange listings. Actually, Kuna was up here previously, so thanks guys for listing Zen recently. Appreciate that. We also have dozens of other exchange listings out there, everything from Binance to Bittrex and all the other big guys. And we have some great points of sale partnerships. So this is devices where you want to go spend your cryptocurrency, buy a coffee. You can go do it now. We have Pay2Mat is one of our partners here. They're in the other room. I can't wait to go buy a coffee or something else from them with my Zen afterwards. I encourage everyone to give it a shot. But this is what you need to think about is your broad organization and your architecture here that goes beyond just your immediate team. So I'll try to speed this up a tad, but one big thing that I realized is open source has a lot of benefits, but then it's not perfect at the same time. And oftentimes, oddly enough, this is a controversial statement. So in the world of open source, which is where Bitcoin came from, and a lot of these projects still operate, is you're basically publishing all of your code online, and you're hoping that you have volunteers from all over the world that improve it and make the code better and make products with it. It doesn't always happen that way. So what I've found personally is it works for the biggest projects out there with the most attention. So it worked for Linux, it worked for Mozilla, it worked for Bitcoin and Ethereum, but it probably won't work for a project that's ranked 150 or 250 on CoinMarketCap. You can't bank on having the best developers in the world. Just find your project and start contributing organically. So that's why we've built this more as a business, as a hybrid. So we still use open source, hybrid ecosystems. We augment this now with actual business systems that have real funding. And we cultivated this as what we call a full stack business. So we don't just have full stack devs, we also have a full stack business where we want everything from business development to marketing to operations, finance and accounting, and you have to think about this stuff, guys. Even think about investor relations and customer support. So we have a huge team, like 50 plus people, like I said, and the big challenge for us is we're operating in a bear market. This is a log graph here, and it's still pretty abysmal over the last year, but there's really no surprise to people here. But when you're a project like ours that has a budget dependent on the price of our cryptocurrency, it matters. So our budget's been cut about 2/3 in the last year, and we've still had to operate, and we've actually expanded into the bear market. So it's very challenging. What I like to challenge people from an economics perspective is to think about what is the value function that you want to optimize here. Are you a profit maximizing organization, like a profit maximizing company, or are you building something different? Maybe something that goes beyond that. That's the way I like to look at ourselves, is we're sort of a hybrid social experiment or social project, economics project, and a business, right? So we're sort of a hybrid, and you have to think about the objective functions you're trying to maximize there. And it's the most competitive industry in the world with massive volatility. So as you're making investments now, in the typical business world, you've got this concept called a net present value, or an NPV. It basically means the net income or net return minus the net cost of the investments that you make. And if it's positive, yeah, you go ahead and you invest incremental capital. That may not always hold in a massively volatile industry, because now you need to think about forecasting into the future and realize maybe next month you're only going to have half the budget that you do today. So you have to be a little bit more conservative. And the final challenge for businesses in this market is think beyond just the technology. Now, the technology should be a mechanism or a vehicle to bring real-world value. Okay, technology is not an end in itself. Technology is a means to other ends. And the ends that I think we should be looking at are making people's lives better in a meaningful way. And this comes down to making products that people love. They're simple, intuitive, and actually improve on people's lives. So this is the challenge: is as an industry, we need to start providing real-world value. And we need to bring our technology from the geeks to the masses. And when we do that, we'll actually be successful. So thanks, guys. That's what I have here. Any questions? I'll stick around for a couple minutes.